Subscribe now and get ready for a wild ride through British political history. 8. Henry Campbell Bannerman was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1905 to 1908. Campbell Bannerman's cabinet was marked by infighting and divisions between Liberal Party factions. This made it difficult for him to pass legislation and implement policies effectively. Campbell Bannerman's government struggled to deal with the Irish Home Rule crisis, which eventually led to the partition of Ireland in 1922. His government's inability to find a lasting solution to the issue contributed to its downfall. Despite his early promises to address social reform, Campbell Bannerman's government failed to make significant progress on issues like poverty, labor rights, and women's suffrage. His government's efforts were often half-hearted or piecemeal, leaving many social problems unresolved. Campbell Bannerman was embroiled in a scandal surrounding his personal finances, which damaged his reputation and led to allegations of corruption. 7. Andrew Bonar Law was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1922 to 1924. Law's government was criticized for being out of touch with the general public. He was seen as a representative of the Conservative Party's wealthy elite, and his government's policies were often perceived as benefiting the wealthy at the expense of the working class. Law's government struggled to address the economic crisis caused by the post-World War I recession. Law's government faced several major trade union disputes, including the 1921 dockworkers' strike and the 1922 coal miners' strike. His handling of these disputes was criticized for being heavy-handed and confrontational, which damaged his reputation and alienated many workers. Law's government relied heavily on coalitions with other parties, including the Labour Party and the Liberal Party. Bonar Law resigned as Prime Minister in May 1923 due to his poor health and was succeeded by Stanley Baldwin. His time in office was marked by controversy, division, and economic instability, which contributed to his negative reputation among historians. 6. James Callaghan was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1976 to 1979. Callaghan's government was unable to control inflation, which rose to over 20% in 1975. This led to high interest rates, high unemployment, and economic stagnation. Callaghan's government struggled with industrial relations, particularly with the trade unions. The 1974-75 miners' strike, the 1976-77 Grunwick dispute, and the 1978-79 winter of discontent all highlighted the government's inability to manage labor disputes effectively. Callaghan was accused of lacking a clear vision for Britain's future and failing to provide a compelling narrative about his government's policies. Callaghan was seen as being out of touch with public opinion, particularly among young people who felt that he and his government were not addressing their concerns about unemployment, inflation, and social issues. Some members of his own party, including his Chancellor of the Exchequer Denis Healey, were critical of Callaghan's economic policies and questioned his leadership style. 5. Arthur James Balfour was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1902 to 1905. Balfour's government was criticized for its handling of the economy, particularly during the Boer War. The war effort led to a significant increase in government debt, which Balfour's government struggled to manage. Balfour's government took a hard line against trade unions, introducing legislation aimed at limiting their power and restricting their activities. This alienated many workers and damaged his popularity. Balfour's government faced controversy over its foreign policy, particularly in relation to the Boer War and its aftermath. The war was unpopular in Britain, and Balfour's government was criticized for its handling of the conflict. Balfour faced criticism from other conservative leaders, including Joseph Chamberlain and A.J. Mundella, who disagreed with his leadership style and policies. 4. Alec Douglas Home was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from October 1963 to October 1964. He struggled to connect with the public and was perceived as out of touch. The Profumo affair, a scandal involving a minister of war and a call girl, led to a significant crisis for the government. Douglas Home's handling of the crisis was seen as inadequate, and he was criticized for not acting quickly enough to address the issue. Douglas Home was criticized for failing to reform the Conservative Party, which was seen as being out of touch with modern Britain. The economy was struggling during Douglas Home's tenure, with high unemployment and inflation. His government's policies were seen as ineffective in addressing these issues. Douglas Home was seen by some as a temporary leader who only took over after Macmillan's resignation due to illness. He lacked the authority and legitimacy. 3. Ramsay MacDonald was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom 3 times, from 1924 to 1929, from 1929 to 1935, and from 1935 to 1937. MacDonald's first government 1924 to 1929 was formed with the support of the Labour Party and the Liberal Party. However, he abandoned this national government in 1929, which led to a period of political instability and weakened the government's ability to address economic issues. MacDonald's governments struggled to address the economic crisis of the 1930s. His policies were criticized for being ineffective in stimulating economic recovery, and he was accused of being too close to big business and industry. MacDonald's second government 1931 to 1935 implemented several policies that were seen as betraying Labour's socialist principles, such as introducing means testing for benefits and cutting unemployment benefits. MacDonald's governments introduced austerity measures during a time of economic crisis, which disproportionately affected working-class people. 2. Neville Chamberlain was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1937 to 1940. Chamberlain's decision to sign the Munich Agreement in 1938, which allowed Germany to annex Czechoslovakia, is seen as a major failure of British foreign policy. It is argued that this policy emboldened Hitler and led to further aggression. Chamberlain's government was criticized for being slow to rearm and prepare for war. Chamberlain's government was repeatedly warned by intelligence services about the growing threat from Nazi Germany, but he ignored these warnings or downplayed their significance. The British economy was struggling during Chamberlain's premiership, with high unemployment and poverty rates. Chamberlain's appeasement policy led to a loss of trust among Britain's allies, including France and Poland. 1. Anthony Eden was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1955 to 1959. Eden's handling of the Suez crisis in 1956 is widely regarded as a major failure. He authorized a military invasion of Egypt without consulting the United States, which led to international condemnation and a significant loss of prestige for Britain. Eden suffered from poor health during his premiership, including frequent hospitalizations and periods of absence from office. This made it difficult for him to effectively lead the government. Eden's views on Europe were unclear, which led to uncertainty and tension within his own party. He was seen as being indecisive on issues related to European integration and British membership in the European Economic Community. Eden was criticized for his treatment of colonial officials who disagreed with his policies, particularly those involved in the Suez crisis. He was accused of being ruthless and dismissive towards those who challenged him. And that's a wrap on our countdown of the worst UK Prime Ministers of the 1900s. From Chamberlain's disastrous appeasement policies to Eden's Suez crisis blunders, these leaders left their mark on British history, for all the wrong reasons. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the annals of British history. Remember, it's not all about the monarchs and statesmen, sometimes it's about the leaders who make mistakes that shape the course of history. And if you want to learn more about these leaders and others, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more historical content.